What's up, everyone? Matteo and I are here. We've got a big announcement for you.
That's right, Shawn. So first of all, the book you've been hearing about over the past 2 years, The Fourth Father, my creator-owned book, is finally making its first step into reality. Actually, it's 2 steps. Step number 1, you'll finally be able to read issue number 0. That includes the first 20 pages of the story for free. You can read the digital version by subscribing to my newsletter on matteoscalera.com. Once subscribed, you'll receive a link and a password that will give you online access to the book. If you're already subscribed, you should have received the link ready by now. Or if you want a physical copy, you can have it by stopping by at our tables in Artist Alley, tables D24 and D25, at New York Comic Con, October 9th to the 12th. And again, you won't have to pay anything for it. It's my gift to you. If you're not gonna be attending New York Comic Con though, no worries, there'll be other ways to get it. In the meantime, again, you can enjoy the digital version through my newsletter. And then Shawn, number 2.
The pre-launch page on Kickstarter is already active. Click the link below in the description. When you click the link, hit the Notify Me button. You'll be able to get updated once the campaign starts, which should officially be happening in March 2026. So Inkpulp community, please help spread the word. Tell your friends.
Tell your grandma.
Call your babysitter from your childhood and tell them.
Tell all your ex-girlfriends.
The most important person to tell is Eric. Fill Eric's DMs with notifications on Matteo's Kickstarter. And for all of you podcast fans out there, Matteo's got one more thing for you. This is the Inkpulp Podcast. Welcome to the Inkpulp Podcast. This is the special indie edition, I guess we'll call it, Jim.
Yeah.
Got my co-pilot Mahfood in the house, Food One, the chocolate milk bandit.
The Indie Kings show, Shawn, is what I'd like to call
Indie
it.
Kings.
Indie
and
Kings.
We've got the king himself, Dean
Yes.
Haspiel, joining us today. What's up, Dino?
Hey, fellas, the indie show, huh? I've always said that I was too independent for the mainstream, but too mainstream for the independent world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
You know?
I fall into that same category. I probably am more in mainstream friendly, but I throughout my whole career, I've heard your style's a little like eclectic or a little
Which is
different than
cool.
what
That's
people
what's great about it.
I'm happy about it. Yeah.
If
All
you
that
think
said
about the
to me is
history-
like you're a bit unique, and that's not a bad thing. I'm sure Jim heard it too.
Right.
yeah.
I mean, you don't want anybody to see a piece of your work, whatever it is, and say, that's interesting. Not in that way. You know,
Right,
you
yeah.
want them to be like, wow, I had no idea that could exist, you know, and then,
Right.
Dive deep into it.
Yeah.
I feel like the sign that I was doing it all wrong was if I showed my portfolio to an editor at DC and they're like, "Oh, we have a Green Lantern arc for you." I'd be like, I
Right.
failed myself.
Wow.
I think we're
Actually-
all too charismatic to be just indie. Like we're all guys that have social skills and comfortable. We can talk.
Yeah.
We can present ourselves.
we
and
don't hate ourselves enough.
There's like that
Exactly.
stereotype of like the shoegazer, awkward indie
right.
guys that I like all styles of comics, but
Yeah,
for me, I was
yeah,
always like, I just do what comes naturally, like what gigs.
I like what's
fit,
going on
you
now,
know?
where the mainstream and the indie has just become this nebulous thing where a lot of mainstream creators have gone fully independent. A lot of indie creators are getting work in the mainstream. Like it's just comics, man.
Yeah.
But I remember, you guys probably remember back in the like late 90s, there was like such a division, like a clear division between the two camps.
That's when
But
I
that
was.
cool. Listen, just like school, like I was in the Yankees, you were in the Mets, you know, like I drank
Yeah.
Coca-Cola, you drank Pepsi, you know, like I'm into hip hop, you're into rock and roll. Like the lines were there to not only celebrate what you loved or, you know, but also to make a distinction. And it's funny because I've worked with DMC. I used to joke one of the worst things ever happened is when Run DMC and Aerosmith got
right.
together and
Walk
literally
This Way.
broke down the walls.
Yeah.
You know,
Right,
Yeah.
right.
like literally.
In
And
the
as much as
video,
we love Walk This Way, like it did the lines started to blur big time. And actually that's great because it means why do you need that distinction? But now
Yeah,
it's a free for all, you know?
I
yeah.
agree. Yeah, I love it.
Dino, I want to bring up something, a blast from the past, just because I'm a huge Norm Breyfogle fan. So I have the whole run of every issue
Nice.
of Detective Comics he's done. This is 589. Dude, this is from 1988. And for some reason, out of this run, out of the blue, in the middle of this issue by Norm Breyfogle, is a young baby Dean Haspiel story.
Whoa.
Yeah. That
Like,
image
so
you're showing right now.
Oh,
How did this come to be, dude?
I think I know how it.
That's awesome.
So I'll tell you how. First of all, that's the only thing I can tolerate. It was that cover you just shown. Now this is someone else inked me. I was part of the what do you call it? The assembly line, right? Like there's a writer, there's a penciler,
Inked by Dennis Rodier. I don't
or
even know.
Rodier. I think, and I think he went on to have
I
something.
know that name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that name.
Because Denny O'Neil is still the editor, and I had this fantasy of like Howard Chaykin strong-armed them into giving you this gig. Like Chaykin confronted Denny O'Neil, was like, "You better give my boy Dino a shot at DC Comics," and because you were in that crew in the '80s, the Chaykin New York, like that crew. So I was like, how did this happen?
I had closer access. Okay. So in 1985, which was my senior year of high school, was the year that I became an assistant to Howard Chaykin on American Flag, Bill Sienkiewicz on New Mutants and Elektra Assassin, and Walter Simonson on Thor, right? So that's 85.
Wait, just pause.
I know.
You just ran down like giants, like three
People,
giants.
let that sink into your brain.
Yeah. So
what
you
Dean
worked
just
with
said, like
Howard
comics
Chaykin,
history.
Bill Sienkiewicz,
Bill Sienkiewicz,
and Walt Simonson.
And
you had Elektra Assassin pages in your hand, like on the
dude.
train?
I brought him home. with me.
That's fucking nuts.
New Mutants I brought home with me, and that was at the time when he was drawing the kid, Professor X's kid, and they go into his mind.
Legion.
And they go into his mind, and Sienkiewicz is really fascinated with a duo shade.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to talk about this. Perfect. Go ahead.
We can talk about it. So Chaykin was using that on American Flag, and so Sienkiewicz suddenly was like, "Well, I got a story coming up in New Mutants that I could maybe use that, because when we go inside Legion's head, it's a kind of like a scattered, landscape of sorts, a fractured landscape." And he wanted to use, instead of the dot matrix that Chaykin used on Flag, there was like a line, a crosshatch. Yep. Line's going this way and lines going the other way, right? Mm-hmm. So part of my job was, once we discussed it, was to actually paint in those shades, plus draw some of the backgrounds, because it was just a scattershot type, landscape. And of course, Bill, drew the figures and laid out the pages and everything else. And with the Elektra Assassin first issue he was working on, he was using a lot of cell paint. So it meant like a lot of flats here and there, right?
Yes.
So he would indicate what, blue here, red there, whatever. And then he would then draw on top, and do what he does, I think I've already mentioned, maybe on this show I've mentioned before, I remember watching him kind of like, it was like debate, something he needed on the page. And I can't remember, he was trying to convey a bruise on a face or some kind of whatever. But I remember him looking over at his tea bag that was all rolled up and it was still a little wet. And I remember him picking it up and going, "Oh," and start dabbing the page with the remnant of a tea bag. I was like, this guy just uses whatever around, he just figures it out, and his art, when you look at it for real, it does look like, some of it's very spontaneous, very improvised, a lot of his artwork. But so that was like this heavy senior year. And I befriended, I don't think it was 85. It might've been the year before, when our school was in Harlem. Larry O'Neill, Denny O'Neill's son. Okay. So we were buddies. And at one point I heard about this bonus book program that DC was kind of recruiting rookie, new, young artists to do like a comic book in the middle of a comic book series, just to try them out, test them out. And so this issue of Detective, I guess I was basically saying to Denny, come on, man, give a cripple crab a crutch. Like, I can do this,
it does say bonus book, not bonus story. Book. It says bonus book on the cover. Yep. So and it's still a 75-cent normal monthly issue of Detective, but because I rebought all these a couple years ago, man, in like 50-cent bins. And when I was going through them, I just keep forgetting to bring it up to you. But I was like, wow, 1988, Dino. Like how
No, it's 88.
How did this happen?
I must have been 20, 21.
Okay.
Maybe 21. Wow. But dude, I wasn't ready for prime time. Look at the artwork. Like, yeah, my pencils were definitely sharper than those inks because the ink softened me up. And maybe I can still see remnants of like what I still use today, But my layout game was weak. My anatomy game is still not that great. But, it basically sucks. I do like the cover. There's something to it. It's got like an Art Deco vibe to it.
Yes.
And I inked the cover. So in other words, that cover, I didn't color it, but I penciled and inked the cover. So I feel like I had a little more ownership to it.
Yeah, that image.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a great cover. I think it's great. Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, it's simple, but I can still tolerate it.
Dude, I see the guy in the background. I see a little Chaykin influence in the face there.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I don't know if that story is canon. It might be Batman canon. And if it is, that there's I don't love the way I drew Poison Ivy, but there's this guy with a golden hand that I don't think has ever been used again. And I kept thinking, if I ever did a Batman comic, I might have to, since I co-created this guy and I don't even remember the story, he might have to be the villain, just to kind of do a tip of the hat to the younger Dean,
So
but then I did do a secondary bonus book. I don't know if you know about this.
Okay, I was going to ask you, like, what happened after this? Like, did it work? Did you get more work from it?
No, I thought I was done at DC for forever. After that, I figured like, no, man, I failed the smell test or whatever, right? Because I think I was I in college? I don't remember if I might have been going to SUNY Purchase at the time. And you know what happened? I don't know if you guys been to college, but you start partying, man. You start hanging. Why would I sit down and draw a comic book?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, and like, I guess I'm doing art and studying, but I'm hanging out, Like, I didn't go to college for 2 years after high school because I didn't think I was ever going to go. And my grades were not up to snuff, from high school. And then I somehow snuck my way in because I was going up there on weekends anyway to hang out with people like Larry O'Neill,
Right.
And they were all making films and we all wanted to make movies. So I started to lean into that, a different story making medium, Yep. And it was just a lot of fun. And then I believe like I had been hassling Larry and Denny enough that Denny threw me a bone. I did this comic, not great. But the weird thing is I think they did 10 to 12 maybe 15 issues of those bonus books, like monthly. So they had, and I remember I got another chance. I don't know why. And it was for Justice League International. Okay. I don't remember who wrote it or who the team was, but I was the penciler and inker. And it was a Booster Gold story featuring, Blue Beetle and, it was a Maxwell Lord comic featuring Booster Gold and Blue Beetle.
Right.
And I penciled the whole thing in college while partying and whatever else I did. I fell off a 3-story building, broke both my legs, my lower back, and my right drawing hand.
What?
Whoa.
And then I'm sitting in a wheelchair at my art table with a brace around my drawing hand, inking this comic. So if you ever see this comic,
shit.
That's why it looks like that. But I will say this.
Oh, go ahead.
What?
Go ahead.
I was going to say real quick. The editor, I believe, on that series, or at least for that Justice League, was, I think, Joe Orlando, or if he wasn't credited, Joe Orlando was a guy that I spoke to, and he gave me some tips. I think he actually did some doctoring of the artwork because they needed it. Although this is one panel that looks completely bastardized. And he's a guy, like, years later, I'd be like, oh, that guy was part of EC Comics and, like, is a legend. And in fact, he drew the backup in Watchmen, that pirate ship story.
The pirate. Yeah. Oh, shit.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and he was such a gentleman, and like, and then later on, when Howard Chaykin, I think, lists the 5 top influences of who helped shape his comics career, I think Joe Orlando is on that list. So check him out.
So how fucked up were you when you fell off the roof? Like you were partying?
So we had a tradition of Herradura tequila on a Friday night, and 6 of us would do 6 shots in a half hour.
Oh my God.
And Herradura is a hallucinogenic kind of tequila, right? So it's Friday night, we're going to get loose, whatever. We're going to, I always say I felt like a combination of Calvin and Hobbes and Iron Man when I would ever, like this playful, metallic superhero kind of thing, right? And, we would go up to this library roof of SUNY Purchase, and honestly, it's at an angle. So it's like 3 or 4 stories tall, but you would climb up the angle. You climb up to the top of the first floor roof, climb up this angle, and that gave you about 3 stories. So I was only in midair 1 story, but it was raining. Okay. I won't get into the details, but ultimately I was wearing rubber boots, and I just kept sliding, and I had the thrust of 2 stories coming down, and instead of landing like some other people did, I just kept going with the force of time and space behind me, and broke and shattered my left heel and tore the ligaments. My right knee just blew up for some reason from the force and tension. I tried stopping by hitting the edge and tearing the ligaments in my drawing hand, and then the bottom of my spine was bent. And I knew all this. Well, but first of all, I couldn't get up, right? And in fact, the first thing I said when they came to me, I guess I blacked out for a second, and they came up to me. And they said, "Are you okay? You okay?" I said, "Yo, did that look fresh? Like, I just want to make sure it looked cool. Like, did I look like an idiot? Or did it look cool?" And then my friend realized, we all realized I could not stand or anything. I was a mess. So a friend of mine luckily had a kind of a hatchback car where they put me gingerly into this car, and I felt every bump on the way to the hospital. I went to the hospital. They started doing x-rays of my legs. I figured just my legs. And he said, "We're going to do everything." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "We don't know what you've broken." And that's when I discovered all this other stuff. And then I'm in the hospital for like a couple of weeks or whatever. And then when I finally came back to Purchase, I'm in a wheelchair, right, for a couple of months. But that's when you find out who your friends are.
Right.
I will say this, like, it's humiliating, but also there's something too, like your friends having to pick you up out of a chair and sit you onto a toilet. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I was gonna ask.
But there were some assholes on campus that would make fun of me, and so to the right side of my wall, my bed was next to a wall. I had a crayon, and I kept a list of names, man.
Oh yeah. Your enemies list. Okay.
And then another thing you learn is when you're finally on crutches now, and you're walking around, and everyone walks at a certain pace, and they forget you're lagging, right? And I would kind of yell ahead as they were all getting ahead of me, my friends. I'd be like, "Hey, hold on a second. Yo, I got a joke. And they'd like, "Word?" And they would stop and they wait for me. And I go, "Yeah, thanks for waiting for me." Like there was
yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but that's veering away from the comics career thing. I did that was 88. So in 1987. I did a 4-issue miniseries called The Verdict with a Kentucky writer named Martin Powell that was published by Eternity Comics. And I believe it was lettered by Pat Brousseau.
Okay.
And Brian David Marshall was the publisher, editor. And I remember going to somewhere deep in Brooklyn to like meet him. And there was this dude in the corner just drawing away, and his name was Evan Dorkin. He was doing a comic called Pirate Corps.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who later on we would do collaboration.
Yeah. Before I forget, Dino, during that era with the Sienkiewicz, Chaykin, Simonson, were you physically going to their studio like every day and being in the space and doing the work, or they were giving you stuff? You said you took stuff home. Like what was that?
It was all on Zoom. We just did it on Zoom back
Right,
then.
right. In 87, yeah.
Pre-internet
So no,
Zoom.
85, high school ends at like 2:45, 3 o'clock, whatever it was. Me and Larry would jump on a train, go downtown to the garment district. And I believe it was on 28th Street or 29th Street between 7th and 8th or something like that. And they were in a building and they were on like the 8th floor or something. And Larry was already an assistant for Howard on Flag. And down the hall was Bill Sienkiewicz, Dennis Cowan, and Michael Davis. And I'm sure you've heard of those guys, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and so I remember Dennis was working on V. Remember the TV show V had a comic book?
The adaptation.
Yeah.
And then he did, I think, a Vigilante where he drew Vigilante as Clint Eastwood. I remember looking at a lot of Clint Eastwood pictures. And then there was this cat named Michael Davis who would later on, and he was working on some story that he was going to be published by Epic magazine or something. It was like an alien story. But Dennis showed up like every day. Michael showed up once in a while. And little by small, Bill started to not show up as much. So he started off wanting to have an assistant. I think he just wanted an assistant because Howard had one or something. It was just cool, right? And like, I mean, I'm sure he looked at my art and was like, we have nothing in common, but he liked me. I was there to assist and help out in any way. But for a little while, he'd be there and I'd be working, but then sometimes he'd be leaving stuff for me to do because he wasn't there. So I got to become more friendly with Dennis Cowan actually because of that. But then I got friendlier at Upstart Studios down the hall because I'd go in there feeling a little frustrated, like, where's Bill? And Bill was like, I think had just moved to Connecticut, so it was harder for him to get back and forth to Manhattan, and whatever he was dealing with at the time, which was probably personal. And then, I'm hanging out in the room with Chaikin, Simonson, Larry O'Neill, Jim Sherman, who's a great artist. And he had done some Legion of Superheroes. He did an epic comic called Steel Grip Starkey, I think, with Alan Weiss. And previously in that room was also Jim Starlin, Val Myrick, Frank Miller.
Shit.
Oh,
I mean, that room
dude.
alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's magic.
Oh my
So I always felt that Chaikin took pity on me because I was feeling like a little lonely and like left out. And he took me on as a second assistant. That's how I got into the Upstart room.
Okay.
And he had a lot of work to do. I mean, he was putting out basically a monthly book in Flag. Okay.
Yes.
So, and I remember that was the first time I ever saw, where can I get a piece of paper? Here. First time I ever saw somebody, and it was a Chaikin, take one piece of paper, right? And put, I don't know, 22 or 24 a little elongated squares, and was just on one piece of paper working out the entire issue.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Right? And just laying it out and making little notes. And I was like, wait a second. Of course, it's not till years later, and I think we might discuss this. Did Jack Kirby even ever do a layout, or did he just draw a page?
Right.
Anyway, that's a whole other thing. But as a writer, he was working out the story beats and trying to figure out, like, what happens on this page, and maybe seeing some of the visuals and taking little stick figure notes or something,
Wow.
and I was just blown away by that, and I told you the prank they pulled on me, right?
No.
No, we didn't talk about that
So
on the live show.
I felt horrified, but also honored when they did what they did. So they had a record player, and like Howard would play like he and Simonson like Warren Zevon and Werewolves of London or whatever that Van Morrison, and like I was like not into that shit, man. Like it's not my like. Later in life, I respect it, and I've listened to some of it, but I'm a diehard Prince fan. I mean, come on, man. Like that's so.
You don't have to tell us. You don't have to convince us. We're
exactly. So I would argue like how great Prince was, and they kind of looked at me with a side eye, and then finally at one point they said, "All right, Dean, we'll do you a solid. You can bring one Prince record, a single, and once in a while we'll let you play it." I was like, all right, gee, thanks. So I brought a 45 of Little Red Corvette, once in a while they let me play Little Red Corvette on the record. And then one day, and this I should have known by this. I remember Chaikin saying something like, "Hey, why don't you put on that song you like, Dean?" I'm like, "Okay, cool." But I'm thinking, why? You know, like, so I put on the record. We're playing Little Red Corvette, and suddenly I hear like kicking and screaming and stomping and like what sounds like a refrigerator being thrown onto the ground, and like it's Simonson, who, if you ever met Simonson, he's like the Mr. Rogers neighborhood of comics, like the nicest guy, you know.
Yeah.
And he's just like, I fucking hate this. Like, he's cursing, he's kicking, he's breaking like file cabinets, and he's just freaking out at how much he hates this fucking song. And I'm sitting there going, fuck. And I'm looking at Chaikin to find some kind of anchor, some kind of like, and then Larry, and I noticed that they both at some point have their faces pressed against their art tables. Later on, I realized they were trying to stop from laughing because they knew what was coming. And so Simonson comes over and he goes to the record player, and I hear scratching across the entire record, like destroying it, right? And then I turn around and he pulls the record off and he starts breaking it and folding it into pieces, like in his head.
Oh shit!
And I'm like,
okay,
what? This is a hate crime. Like, this is insane, right? Like, so basically, he says, I have something for you, Dean. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I turn around again, and he has a portfolio, and he keeps telling me how he has something for me. And then he pulls out the 12-inch version of Little Red Corvette. And then they start all laughing at me. I'm still fucking traumatized by what just happened, you know, because it just happened, right? And like, I didn't even know what to do. And then and I realized I had been hazed, and that they had gone through the effort of trying to mess with me to tell me I was one of the gang, as it were, you know. And he handed me the 12-inch. And then I remember taking the folded up, busted 45 of Little Red Corvette, and I put a nail in front of my art table, and that was hanging over my art table for the rest of that year. So
that's amazing.
Awesome. That's amazing, dude.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
man.
you would never suspect Walt Simonson of any sort of aggressive behavior. And when I was in college, him and Wheezy were at a convention in Kansas City, and I was in art school with Mike Huddleston, and we like waited in line to show them our samples as a penciler inker team. And they were so sweet and took time with us. And it was at that time, like 95. And they were like, man, you guys are so talented, but there might not be a comic book industry in a year. So maybe figure out something else to do. And we heard that a lot from professionals during that era. And Mike and I are like, oh shit, even Walt and Louise are talking this nonsense. Oh shit, man. Like, but they were super cool. They were, you know,
totally.
That talk has existed forever, but if you don't know what I'm talking about, it was like we were in the spiral out of the speculator early 90s.
Well, and in 95 is when Marvel went bankrupt.
Yeah.
Right.
And even to speak to something recently that just happened, I became an intern once a week at Marvel in 1995 for Mort Todd, who just passed away, Mort Todd.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Who was recently basically helping steer the Ditko verse, the stuff that the Steve Ditko family owns, Static, Mr. A, some of those monster comics like Conga, the gorilla, or whatever, you know, or the name of the character. So they just did a Kickstarter like a few months ago, and they were going to do a bunch of series, and he was coloring them. And I mean, he's worked for everybody, Mort Todd, and he passed away at age 63. Like, what the hell happened, man? You know, so
too young.
But that was my little my original dipping the toes at Marvel. And he was also responsible for like editing their music comics, like KRS-One.
Shit. Okay.
Bob Marley. Who's the rocker? There was like a guy who directed those two Halloween movies. He's like a rock and roll.
Rob Zombie.
Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of that going on in 95, and that was interesting. I mean, dude, at some point, I feel like I have been everywhere somehow. Yeah. I don't know how this happens.
You've finagled the whole world of the whole cycle of all comics, man. Before I forget, though, the other thing, going back to the Zipatone thing, the craft talk.
Yes.
Yeah.
With Chaikin and American Flag specifically, when you were working on that book, he like the level of Zipatone, it was on every single page of American Flag.
So it's
like,
not even Zipatone. That's the crazy part. That really is.
That's the paper. Okay.
That you develop.
So
there was
guys,
never cutting out.
Yeah, let me real quick for everyone out there.
Yeah.
Duo Shade is it's a paper and a set of 2 chemicals. One chemical develops a pattern in one direction. The other chemical develops a pattern in another direction. So you have they call the light developer and the dark developer. And typically it was the lines. So you have one chemical develops the lines so they'll show up this way, and one the other that way. So you can make your crosshatch patterns. I assume with the dots, it was just one chemical and one pattern.
No, so there were 2, and they weren't even like where the lines were like justified. This was a scatter of dots, right?
Yeah.
So you would get like the lighter version, and then you use the second developer, and you get more dots that like develop the other ones as well.
Okay.
So, and then what he would do is often indicate by saying like writing 1 or 2. He'd be like, those buildings are 1. And then maybe over here too. Now, I remember actually, I remember him asking me to draw background figures once in a panel. And dude, I was so nervous about that.
Yeah.
Like we're talking about nobodies, a couple of nobodies in the background,
Right.
like it had other featured elements in the panel. And oh my God. And he was going to ink them. So it was going to be his anyway, whatever he did.
Yeah.
But he was just like giving us a little more work, here and there. Like we did all the buildings. I think after a while I might have done the penciling of certain backgrounds, and Larry would be inking mine, and then Chaikin would be doing the figures and other, certain props or, featured elements. And that was just one way to do. And I remember, he introduced me to Jim Thompson because he reads a lot. And so I discovered the crime writer, Jim Thompson. Obviously Warren Zevon, Van Morrison. But I remember they got a hold of this new series that was coming out of Japan that nobody had seen yet called Akira.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
And we kept looking at Akira going, what is going on here? And then at some point we realized, that dude has 20 assistants. That guy has a guy that just draws cars. Yeah. They have a guy that just draws buildings or whatever.
Right.
But we looked at Akira all the time to kind of like steal from it a little bit. To get somehow sneak it into
who was finding Akira? Like, was it just at a Japanese bookstore in New York? In the city?
Chaikin and Simonson. I didn't have access to or where to go. I mean, I was going to like Forbidden Planet and St. Mark's Comics and that kind of stuff.
Those guys were hanging out with Larry Hama at the time, right?
Oh, totally.
I think there's famous stories of Larry Hama going to the Japanese bookstores in New York and bringing manga to people, and that was like the first time. Some people like Frank Miller and different guys were seeing, Lone Wolf and Cub and possibly Akira.
They were all into European comics and Chaikin cut his teeth a little bit on the bigger tabloid format, with painting kind of sci-fi comics and whatnot before he, did Flag. And I think he had like one foot out the door when he was doing Flag because I feel like he was a little fed up with mainstream comics, he's always held a certain opinion toward the general fan base of comics.
Howard has opinions.
So,
right?
And he offers him unsolicited. It's amazing. It's like I never asked you, Howard, but I love Howard. Howard's, one of my mentors.
Amazing. Yeah.
Oh, dude, he's a friend.
And the proof is in the pudding. Like there are people who talk shit, but he can talk shit because the man is one of the top 10. Listen, I think American Flag is still one of the top 10 comics of all time.
Agreed.
It's unbelievable.
When I was in school, I studied Times Square up, down, inside, and out. Like learning how he used sound in that book. I was put up there.
Oh, Ken Bruzenak is insane what he does, and I feel like that's a semi homage to maybe Alex Toth, who used sound effects as an element of the artwork. Once in a blue moon, I'll do that, or it's like very Eisner-esque, Will Eisner, where he'll do where he anthropomorphizes the background or the landscape, you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Like, you know,
yeah.
with the word spirit, you know, alone.
Yeah. That's had a big impact on me.
Well, I did that when I did the cover for The Quitter, the graphic novel I did with
I remember
Harvey
seeing
yes,
that cover.
yes.
That was
Yeah.
me rocking Eisner, you know? I mean,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Check out that book, guys. Harvey P.
Yeah,
Carr,
guys, that's a great book.
American Splendor.
Is that still in printing, The Quitter?
You know, I think this is what is a crying shame, because when you think about like some of the comics that are not in print in our lifetimes, meaning the stuff that we were like, oh, that's always going to be there. No,
Right.
not necessarily. So like, you know, where is the Harvey P. Carr library? Like,
Yeah.
that guy
Right,
did 35
right.
years of his life, you know, like
Right,
there is a
right.
library, American Splendor, The Quitter, you know, a bunch of the other books he wrote. And you're just like, how is there not a library of that? And
Yeah.
somebody needs to do that.
There's
But then you
there's
think
a
about
lot
the
of
other
the
stuff we've lost.
a lot of Vertigo titles, like good ones. Like Kyle Baker's "You Are Here," I don't think is in print right now. Like, how is that possible?
Oh shit. Yeah.
But also, is he in the conversation? I mentioned him yesterday on a. I also do a podcast with my buddy Vito Del Sante called Vito X Dino, semi-inspired by the likes of yours and other podcasts. You know, where it's two dudes who we often talk to each other or have that conversation, but then have the occasional guest, you know, or whatever. So, but yeah, we were mentioning Kyle Baker last night, and actually I saw him at Terrificon, you know, less than a month ago. You know?
Yeah,
Oh, shit.
Eric Talbot was just here for Dragon Con, and then he stayed at my house for a few days.
Oh,
and
cool.
he was sitting next to Kyle Baker at Terrificon, so he was just telling stories.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean,
I remember seeing Kyle Baker on the train once when he was working on The Shadow, right?
Oh
And
shit.
I had never seen this before, and I still don't know how he did it. And it is true. This is what happened. I'm not making it up, and he confirms it. So like, remember, like that's when you on the trains you had handles, like you'd have poles, but you have handles. You'd be holding on the handle, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they made those poles recently. They took away the handles years ago.
right.
But I saw him leaning a page up against one of those handles and inking on a moving train in rush hour.
Dude, Kyle Baker
Wow.
told me stories of inking, not just The Shadow, but a lot of stuff. Like he told me a story of he would go to school, on the way home from school, stop at the office, pick up his inking job, get on the train, ink on his way home, ink all night, drop off the page in the morning, and then go to school. And I was telling Eric Talbot that, and he's like, yeah, Kyle told me the same story. And the other, Ann Nisetti was editing or writing one of the books, and he was saying, yeah, I inked this on the train. And she just looks at him and goes, I can tell.
I can tell.
Damn.
Well,
I knew that was coming. I knew that was.
And after a while, you could tell because the guy is so talented that you know when he's cranking it or just deadline art type thing. And he did give me advice once because we were hanging out at an art gallery, and he was living on the same block in the East Village, and there was a whole bunch of cartoonists. And he's like, "Oh snap, I got to go early." It was like early evening. We're going to go get dinner with folks. And I was like, "Well, come on, just hang out with us, man." He's like, "I got to get upstairs and draw the next issue of Plastic Man." I was like, "Well, how many pages is due tomorrow?" I was like, "How many pages do you have to do?" He said, "All of it." I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah,
And
Plastic
I think
Man.
he was using a
he was
Cintiq
doing
type
it all
thing.
digital. Yeah, Plastic Man
And-
was so much photography and digital, and
Totally. And he did like 20 issues of that where he wrote and drew it. Oh, and that was another thing. I was like, "What do you have a script?" He goes, "It's all in my head." I'm like, "Okay." And then
that's a different type of cartoonist. That's
it's a different type of cartoon.
Yeah.
And he told me the secret to his pages at that time was to make sure that one panel on the page looked good per page. Because then they don't really see the ones you just shat out, kind of a thing.
Right.
And like
And
you and I could see it, you know, but I think in general, people are like, "Oh,
Well,
Plastic Man comics," you know.
Right after Plastic Man, he went on to do Deadpool Max in the same vein of Plastic Man, like the same techniques. And I was the pinch hitter on that book. So whenever Kyle needed a little a little breathing room, Lapham would write like a 1 or 2 issue story that I would then come in and pinch hit on.
Oh wow, that's great, man. I mean, Deadpool is still Marvel's probably. Is he bigger than Wolverine now? Maybe.
With the movies, he might be.
Well, they're doing a crossover with Batman and Deadpool.
Yeah, that's
Oh
true.
yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
So it's kind of insane how that guy is so malleable in terms of what you can do with him, but also marketable, at the same time. He's their, I would say he's their Looney Tune with guns
That's
and a
exactly,
foul mouth,
dude. That's exactly when I first was offered Deadpool, because that was my first in at Marvel, and I worked on it for like 4 years. That was exactly how Axel Alonso sold it to me. He's like,
wow.
This is our Looney Tunes book.
So what did you show to get the gig, Shawn? Like, what were you working on? What was the portfolio? What recommended you?
I don't. What got me in front of Axel was I was running the sequential art department at SCAD in Atlanta. A friend of mine and me had built that program, and he got bumped up to dean, and then I was department chair. So we had an annual event where we would called Editors Day, where we would bring in editors. And I had become friendly with Axel, not because of comics. Like, we actually became friendly because of hip hop. And like at cons, we never talked comics. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to bother asking him for a job. Like, he's just a cool guy. I like talking to him. And when he came down, I mean, I was hustling still when I was teaching, trying to, get into comics. I was working on indie books. I was doing sample pages. And so Axel was seeing what I was doing. And after that, at the end of the trip, he's like, I see what you're doing. He's like, I might have something for you. And then he got back to the office, and there was a Deadpool annual coming down the pipeline. He's like, I think this is your in at Marvel because of the way you draw and the stuff you do. I think this would be a gateway book for you to break in at Marvel.
It wasn't Deadpool 1000, was it?
No, I worked on that. That was at the end of my Deadpool career.
Oh, okay, because I was in that. I wrote and drew a 4-pager for that.
Yeah, actually, I did a story in that with Fabian, who created Deadpool with Liefeld.
Wow.
But no, mine was like when Deadpool #1 first hit, like the relaunch in like 2008 or something, 2006. They launched a Deadpool series, and that's what made him explode in the comic sphere. And so it was like they had put out 2 issues. They were so wildly successful. They're like, let's do an annual, and that's what I got.
Nice. Okay.
That's cool, man.
Cool.
But so you were working at SCAD. I remember I forget how many years ago this was, so you might have been there. But I got somebody reach out to me to help mentor some kids in the comics department at SCAD. And I still have the files somewhere. And then one of them really went off to actually make comics. Like, you never know what's going to happen, like.
Right,
we were talking earlier how like Marvel every 10 years is, going to, fall apart. Probably not so much now. Although if you wanted to make me editor-in-chief of Marvel, I would go back to like 11 comics a month.
Right.
Just one X-Men, one Spider-Man.
Agreed.
We don't need all that stuff.
Do you remember who
the
the student? Well, you were probably working with Savannah SCAD. I opened up the Atlanta campus.
I'm sorry, it was Savannah. You're right.
Do you remember the student that you were working with that went on to do stuff?
No, he was a black kid. Very cartoony, but like recently when I've seen his artwork, it's very elaborate cartoony,
Was it Jarrett? Was he doing like a wrestling comic?
I think Jarrett, that just sounds familiar.
Jarrett's a good guy. He was a really promising student. I mean, he's a great artist. A funny story about Jarrett is in Atlanta, I prided ourselves on being like the department of professionals because all the teachers were working in the industry and we're really preparing the students for working in the industry. Mm-hmm. And Jarrett was in Savannah, and he did a whole graphic novel of this wrestling book. Uh-huh. And it was called Super Pro KO, I think is what it was called.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Oni picked it up. And so Jarrett did the whole new book for them, but he never asked them for their print specifications.
Oh, no.
So and Savannah had never taught him that that's a thing. So he did a 200-page book completely off proportion. So he had to go in. Yeah, he had to go in and cut and paste all the lettering, all the paneling. Like he had to Frankenstein every page digitally back together. He had to redraw some shit. Nightmare.
Well, That's a learning experience.
Yes.
That's a teachable moment.
Right. That's
Teach
why I
the
was like,
specs of your book.
I mean,
right
one of
away.
the first
Get
things we
that-
talk about is the importance
Respect
of
the
knowing.
specs.
Right.
Yes.
Respect the specs.
Yeah. Oh shit,
God.
man.
All right,
So-
but look, we're at 40. Go ahead, Jim. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna say, Dino, we need to talk to
we
you
need to
all
jump
about
into
your indie
now.
creator-owned stuff, Kickstarter
Well, I want to
stuff.
do that, but also when you came on the scene, Jim, it was just like, who the hell is this guy? Like you had that graffiti hip hop style, and I remember there was no apologies, no permissions. You just came right in, man, and like
Yeah.
I remember thinking like that's incredible, and like to me, it also tells you like that comics can be anything, can look like anything, can read like anything, can be anything.
Yeah.
And I know you had done something with Kevin Smith. Is that what blew you up?
Yeah.
Is that what put you on the map?
The Clerks
Because
book.
me working
Yeah.
with PCAR kind of put me on the map. Even though I wanted to do superhero stuff and I dabbled here and there and I did independent, I hopscotch between independent and mainstream. Obviously I live better in the mainstream world because it's a little more forgiving art-wise or experimental art-wise. Whereas, you're always trying to figure out what is trending or what is good. And I wasn't going to be a Bill Sienkiewicz or a Jim Steranko or whatever, who comes in and changes the goalposts, as it were,
Yeah. You sort of have to
when you
realize what artist you're going to be. Like no one can tell you that. You sort of have to learn on your own by sort of how you start your career, how people react to your work. Like, I just realized when I got in the Kevin Smith camp and Oni Press and Bob Schreck, that camp of people, I was like, okay, I'm never going to be a monthly penciler at Marvel or DC. So what am I going to do? Like, where does all this go? And the Kevin stuff got me attention and success. And then Bob offered me, if you want to keep doing your own creator-owned books here at Oni, we'd love to have you. I said, of course. I stayed with them for a minute. Then Bob left, as you probably remember this, Bob left Oni just 2 years into Oni existing and became Batman Group editor at DC.
Yep, that's right.
Moved to New York. And then I brought all my creator-owned shit over to Image, man, because Jim Valentino and I started talking. And Valentino's roots are in indie underground comics,
Right.
Normal Man and stuff. So I hit it off with Valentino, and he's like, dude, just bring all your stuff over here. Like, we'll do black and white books for you. And that worked out. So, there's no like roadmap for this stuff though. And this is a good segue. This is my segue into us doing Kickstarter stuff. Cause there's no roadmap, cause I'm new to Kickstarter and I'm about to launch my second one on October 1st. You're about to launch something soon, but it does bring me back to the glory days of just like,
it really feels like
and
like 90s comics. It feels like 80s. I mean, so I was very afraid of doing any kind of crowdfunding because what you don't want to find out is that nobody wants your shit. Because it feels like that. But even though at the end of the day, what it really is, if you're a pro and you can deliver, what it really is just a pre-order. But it can be a pre-order with perks. It can come with perks, right? So you have to figure out.
It's also marketing. It's also, I think Kickstarter's biggest strength is that it's the best marketing tool out there.
It's a marketing tool, and it creates FOMO because here's the thing. I don't know if you did this, Jim or Shawn. Have you done a Kickstarter? I forget.
I just finished mine a month ago. Yeah.
So are you dealing with retail or not?
Yeah, I'm handling everything.
No, I'm sorry, retailers.
Oh no. I had a retailer tier, and I did get a couple of orders, but not a lot.
Yeah, Jim? I did the same. I did a retailer tier, and now, man, I need to investigate this further, but I'm at the point now where I'm just individually dealing with certain comic shops across the country and doing wholesale with them to the point where I was just in Tucson last weekend for Tucson Comic-Con, and I brought enough copies of my Kickstarter book, my Savage Street Vigilante book, that I was wholesaling to 2 different comic shops in Arizona. And I sign every copy and draw on them, but it is super grassroots, man, where I'm doing still big corporate illustration jobs and stuff. But then I have my Kickstarter comic that I'm like, what do you need? 10 copies, Gary? I'll get you 10 copies. Joey, you need 7 copies. And it's pretty crazy because it's like, this is just 1995 all
It's
over
awesome.
again.
It's awesome.
It-
Well, and also,
you're your own Fantagraphics. You're your own,
Yes.
you know, being your
We all
own slave labor or whatever. You know, like
we're doing a tour, Jim, me, and Matteo, early next year to go from
That's
shop
great.
to shop and
That's
and
great.
kind of like nurture relationships and do stuff.
Before we get into my 4 deep cuts that I did recently, which was also semi-inspired by Michel Fife's Copra, you know,
Yes. Love Michel.
all 50 issues were basically, well, not Kickstarters. I think it started Kickstarter, but now he just got people ordering from him directly because he built enough of a fan base that would order directly.
Marty's doing the same thing.
Marty's the same thing. And Marty is interesting, and this is what you've been doing, Jim, is the bootleg comic. The bootleg comic put him on the map, right, with Spider-Man, and you with your Batman, and now you're doing what's the type of character? Now you're doing your Spider-Man, right?
The Arachnid Enforcer. Yeah, I'm capitalizing on that whole. But I love it. I think it's dope that bootleg comics are now.
I love bootleg comics.
They're a subgenre of Kickstarter, dude. Like, if you go down the well, there's a bunch of people around doing bootleg comics on Kickstarter.
What I love is the bootlegs comics. They bring up conversations when everyone's going on podcasts about the research they're doing, the old books, the old artists. Like it's really kind of like full circle, like celebrating. Like when you're doing Jim's doing a bootleg Spider-Man, you read like a ton of Spider-Man books, and we're talking about it all the time. I love it.
Right. I'll say this: I've been at Terrificon the last 2 shows. The first one, not just recently, but last year, I was hanging out with Marty Keene and Russ Kazmierzak and a couple other guys. And I found out about a little Marvel gathering at a bar, and I brought Marty with me. And I said, Marty, I should introduce you to C.B. Cebulski, you know, the editor-in-chief of Marvel. Dude. And he was all like a little afraid because of the whole bootleg Spider-Man. Could he get busted? Will he get sued or whatever? I was like, no. So they met, and then this time around, CB left a note on his table saying, I want to talk to you. Because he's now done 2 Spider-Mans, he's done a Wolverine, and now he's doing something like a Batman type thing himself, right? You know,
he's doing it all in Italian.
Plus his own, you know, creator own comics. And I won't get into it, but something really cool came out of that meeting.
That's beautiful.
Awesome. Because I saw you guys right before Terrificon. We had dinner.
Right.
And Marty was like, Marvel wants to talk to me, so I'm dying to hear.
That's right. So CB actually left a note, and then they did have a talk, and I know what they talked about. And if it's still happening, you could never guess what it is they asked him to do.
I'm
never.
so stoked
Not in
for
a million
him.
years, which is
I'm
bizarre.
So stoked for him. Yeah.
But it's great.
That's the shit.
But wait, we were going to talk about another thing I want to talk about. Oh, so this is what I was asking about retail. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Retail. What about retail?
So retail. So I'm gun shy. Not because I don't want to work with retailers, and I know how important it is to have my comics in a comic book shop, at least the ones that actively sell and push independent comics. Yeah. But the thing is, right now, I don't know about you, man, but guess what I can sell, you know, chest face for, right? Yeah. I can sell it for $15, a 24-page comic that otherwise is $5 now or $4, you know, if it's published by Marvel and DC. But this isn't a Marvel or DC comic. It's a Dean Haspiel comic that you can only get from me, right? The problem is if I can actually get 15 as a pre-order plus perks and make more money on that end, or they find out my Etsy shop and they order it and they're also paying for shipping, or they're getting it from my table. That's what I'm getting. This is like dinner, okay? Each sale. But if you ask me right now, so I take this to the comic shop and I say, this is $15 cover price. First of all, they might look at me and go, you're an idiot. There's no way I can sell that to my customers for $15 because, again, the idea that a 24-page comic is a certain price tag, right?
It's becoming pretty standard, like for the independent world that people are paying
for the independent world. So maybe there'll be, but okay, let's say I convince a store that you can take some of these, let's say 5 of them or 10 of them or whatever, and sell it, please, at the $15 cover price because that's what I'm charging everyone else, right? What am I actually getting on this? Is it $7.50, $7?
Yeah. So the way most people do retailer tier is if you buy 10 copies, you get it at half price. That's like the typical retailer thing.
So $7.50, I've lost $7.50 now. because guess what it cost me to print this comic? And I think I printed 600 or 750 copies right now. Just, I think it cost me $2 or $3 an issue, right?
Uh-huh.
So I'm making $4.
Yeah.
Maybe
but you've
450.
got to look at the shop as a marketing thing. You should have a nice ad in the back for your website, your ads, to build that relationship between you and the customer as being tighter. I feel like getting the shops involved, it's not so much about making the good money from the shops, but about spreading the word of you
It's
that will
marketing
then
and
come back.
optics.
Right.
And then hopefully it boomerangs that they come find more material from you directly, right?
Exactly.
But I'll also say this, and I understand it, it's a little bit off, but I also understand a retailer going, you already sold to your core audience. Okay, maybe I did, but guess what? Can you expand my audience then, please?
Dude, talk to Monty about this because he's done a great job at this.
Yeah.
He's got shops carrying everything he does.
The cool thing about it is you kind of have to know that you're making like a boutique craft item with these type of comics. So I did well with the Kickstarter and I sell it. I do well selling it through my website. There's also a PDF if people just want the digital version on my site. But I was just in St. Louis visiting family like a month ago. I went into one of my favorite comic shops. The guy who owns the shop, it's mostly old stuff and new comics. It's not like super huge on indie, but I brought in 5. He's like, I'll take 5 at half price, right? They're $20 each. He gives me 10 for each one. Okay. I sign them, I draw them. I'm in the back room digging through back issues. And like half hour later, I come out and he's like, I just sold 3 of them. Bring more in. Bring more in. I'm like, really? While I was in the back, he put it on the counter on a stand and it was like signed and remarked by Jim Food. And I'm like, wait, it was Saturday. The shop was busy. I'm like, but it was like 3 sold while I was there. And he's like, dude, awesome. Bring more in. But
you just gave me a great idea. I'm going to go to shops and I'm going to try to sell and then go in the back room. And I'm going to have a friend come in and buy a couple.
There you go.
Dude, that's what Wu-Tang did. That's exactly what Wu-Tang did to get their Protect Your Neck picked up. They did that. But I was going to say another thing is you got to look at the shop as an opportunity to have an event. That's big too. So you can say, look, buy 10 of these at half price. We'll do a signing, and that way you'll get to face with fans. You get them on your website newsletter, whatever you got to do to get them into you. You can have prints you sell there. You can have art to sell there. Like, and also I think it's important that we help nurture the good retailers in comics while the big publishers are really fumbling around. We can develop something that could really turn into something. Because if you get enough shops and your print runs get bigger and bigger, the cost of printing comes down, and then you're making more money too.
But you also said something that it's something I've always dreamed of, and I think of the Scooby-Doo van of like getting into a truck, where you sleep in it or whatever, unless you get some hotel or crash at a fan's house or a friend's or family, and you do the tour, right, with 2 or 3 other posse members, right, and you're a group, and you're out there, and you're like a band, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, I also think that's really important.
Except now you're 50. Now everyone's 50 doing this. And everyone's like, I gotta sleep. I can't sleep in this shitty van.
Now you're in bed by 10 after a big dinner.
Totally, man. But also I was thinking, and I've been talking to some other artist friends about this locally, about creating a Trojan horse publishing umbrella where, let's say you only are putting out 1 or 2 comics a year or books or collection or whatever, and you know that like the bigger distributors are not going to just take you on because you put out a book once or twice in a while. So what you do is you ally with other folks who are putting out stuff, and you pick a month or 2 of the year, and then they get a month or 2 of the year, and so on and so forth. So you fill out like 8 to 12 months. And you become like this, we're called this, but really it's just individual,
Right.
And it's
also kind of what Inkpulp is doing, where like I do a Kickstarter, then Jim does one, then Matteo does one, and we have these shows where we're always promoting.
You have the synergy happening, right? And then you're talking to other artists like me, and it continues the all tide, the rising of the water and all tides, lift the ships.
Exactly.
which I also think is important. And then there's like Power Pulp, which I'm still trying to figure out. Have you heard of Power Pulp?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I'm going to Pittsburgh next week, and I'm going to talk to Jim Rugg all about Power Pulp. Because they're an indie comic distributor, basically.
What they are, and I've talked to the Coates brothers who were trying to recruit me, and I'm still considering it. I'm not going to do it right away because if I do this next Kickstarter in October as well, I want to be able to offer some of those comics that would be otherwise at a kind of a Power Pulp, and I just want to keep it exclusive right now before I, after it, then I can put up some comics and see what happens, right? The model's weird because, well, it's not weird. What's cool about Power Pulp is that it really celebrates the outliers. Like when you look at their bunch of comics, you go, oh shit, this really does feel like the off Broadway kind of comics.
Right,
you know what I'm saying? And that's where I live, man. I've written plays for off Broadway, I'm writing 2 right now. But so I really dig that space. And it comes with a cool factor because it's like that niche that we love, but in trying to recruit me, what didn't make sense to me is that they will get the order. You send them some comics, they put it up, they get an order. They charge for shipping, but they do the labor of putting that comic in a box, and hopefully they've ordered some of the comics from the site, and then they mail it, and then you get exactly the money you were supposed to get, no matter what, with no cut. And I said to them, "How long does that last? Like at some point." You guys got to be making. You're doing all that labor, and yes, we're all touting. We live in a world right now where we all have to promote, no matter what, right? So it's not like I'm going to count on them. I don't count on DC and Marvel to promote the comic I drew for them. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just that world. But then when you're doing all that labor and you're not taking a cut, I just feel like at some point, well, I guess the good problem to have is when it becomes too much work and suddenly you're like, all right, guys, can I get $1? Like toward the whatever. Yeah. So I'm still trying to figure that out, but more names are signing up. You guys might sign up, and it's not exclusive. It's just that you're adding your kind of sensibility to theirs, So I think there's something really interesting with Power Pulp, and I'm looking forward to learning more about it. And I might sign up and throw them some comics and see what happens, What's the worst it could be? So
try it out.
But in terms of like me deciding to pull the trigger, I kind of quit comics like 2 or 3 years ago. I had just done a 10-page Superman story that Cena Grace wrote for a Kal-El Superman Returns to Earth special with other stories, and it was a Jimmy Olsen comic, with Superman in it and whatnot. And it was fun to do, but at some point I was like, I don't want to keep begging for morsels, man.
Yeah,
like, I'm getting tired.
Dude, what you just said, I have heard so many pros, like so many people have texted me, be like, I'm tired of having to dance for my dinner, like begging for jobs. Like Eric was just texting me the other day. He's like, man, how do we get out of this? I'm like, that's what we're doing. We're getting out of it.
It's what we're doing.
Yeah.
But we're also taking command of our destiny in some way, more than ever. Because what I don't like is the waiting room. We're the waiting. Hollywood is all waiting, right? Or I don't need permission.
Right, exactly. That's the word, permission. But we spent so much time like giving them all this power over us. Like, am I approved by you to do this work? Like, no, just do it.
And then just so they can do the Kickstarter.
Right.
And they don't really give you enough in advance, and then you don't get enough of a back end. And then, and again, I respect that. It's also really difficult to be a publisher right now. I don't know how they have a staff. Maybe there's no offices and everyone's on Zoom. And, I do know that like the people who are definitely making money is the printer and the guy driving the truck for the U.S. Post Office.
Yes.
They're making the money they need. There's no discount on that.
Right.
So everyone, and the last person to get paid is the artist, always.
Yeah.
So if you want to put on your own publishing hat and treat yourself badly, fine, go at it. But you can also treat yourself very well because you are wearing the publisher hat and the marketing hat, and it means you produce less stories, but maybe you create something that becomes a machine of sorts.
Yeah, I think one thing that more independent creators need to look into is bringing down your printing costs by printing in China, but doing a print run at the same time as some other friends you're having so you can share the shipping. Because I printed 2 books of mine, a print set, Matteo's issue 0 of his book. And because we had all this stuff on one shipping pallet, it brought the shipping costs down considerably. So my price per unit was really manageable. So I think if I were to just order, say, 1,000 copies of my one book, shipping's gonna hurt. But
how many pages is your book?
I did an art book and a sketchbook. The art book was a hardcover, and it was 100. It's 118 pages.
So they're books. They're an actual book. Okay.
But
They're books with
Matteo's
weight.
is a comic. Matteo's is a comic.
Oh, Matteo.
It's
So
a
Jim,
floppy.
your Batman was a comic. I got it.
Yeah.
Where'd you go? Did you go to Mixam?
Yeah, I printed with
Okay.
them.
So I go to Mixam for all mine right now. There's also Marty Keene touts Fireball printing in Philly.
Now let me say this: if you, Jim, and Marty went to China,
Yeah.
and you would be cutting your printing costs down by 400% or 500% probably.
Shit.
Just knowing what Jim paid, I'm guessing if you use Mixam, knowing what you paid. So let me put it to you this way: Matteo's book, which is free, so I can talk about the cost of it. It's a 20-page floppy, printed beautifully with a really nice cover stock. Those were 45 cents a copy.
And that was black and white.
Black and white.
Black and white. That's awesome.
But color doesn't add much more to the printing cost nowadays.
Wow.
That's pretty.
All right,
So
Jim, we
if you-
gotta talk, Jim.
Yeah. So
All right. Yeah, I think if you guys can start pooling like you guys have a Kickstarter launching on the same day, you
Basically,
might want to think about
that's my
printing in
intention.
China and just combining the print run, combining the shipping. But
What's up with the tariffs? Is that hurting us yet? Are
tariffs
we
don't
getting
apply to books.
Okay.
That is one. I mean, you have a normal tariff. Like they didn't go up. I paid an 8% tariff.
Okay.
It went up 0.5%. That's it. So it was 7.5 before this tariff nonsense, and it was 8% after. So it was nothing.
Okay. Well, we will discuss. Speaking of, I kind of want to run an idea, a query by you guys, but before I get there, I'll just establish that I bit the bullet. I felt like I was going to quit comics in some way, and by emotionally feeling and spiritually feeling like I quit comics is when I regained my love for comics, because what I started to hate was the business of comics, which is, by the way, what we're talking about is also the business
This
of
is
comics.
exactly what I went through about 5 years ago. I loved the medium and I hated the industry, and I stopped. And I was like, I have to build a path forward to do creator-owned books. And I made a 5-year plan, and I'm just now getting close to the end of that 5-year plan. And I'm about to start working on my book. But yeah, it's been rough. But I think when you find that like when you let go of that, like that it being a job and the industry nonsense and all that, you find your love back for it.
Yeah.
Well, and the joy, I realized I lost the joy of drawing. I can even see it in some of my artwork. I was like, oh my God, what, like,
it became a job for me. Yeah. My last years of comics, they were just, there was a couple comics that I loved that I had so much fun with, mainly because I was working with really good writers and the scripts were so inspiring. But outside of that, I just look at it like I was not happy. The work does not look good.
But Dean, while we have you on, just because
before we end this portion of the show, I want to talk about your Kickstarter and
I want to show the images you sent us, because like when you're talking about your newer work, COVID Cop, Chest Face, like just the art you sent us, the covers. This, like, you can tell you're having a blast doing your own stuff. Like, this is what you should be doing.
Right.
And that's how I feel about the comics I'm making right now. Like, I think it's obvious when a creator is having fun and just doing what comes natural to them.
Right.
And then that gets the viewer and the reader excited and the potential customer excited, where if you're doing work for hire, it might be a forced situation. It doesn't come out as genuine.
Or, I'm being asked to draw a Superman story for 10 pages, and I realize even by page 10, I don't know what my Superman looks like. You know,
Oh, right.
I didn't figure it out. You know, like
that's a
like,
whole nother thing.
That's a whole other thing where you get an opportunity and suddenly you're like, oh my God. Like looking at that 1988 Batman, I still kind of like that cover. The rest of it is garbage for me, you know, but I also don't know what my Batman looks like. And if I was to do a Batman bootleg, I'd have to figure that out, you know, like
Right.
I think Sienkiewicz
that's
just
the fun.
It is the fun.
You know what Chest Face looks like, though? This guy's designed incredibly well. Like he's
he's like first of all, he looks like a tooth fairy or something, but he also he looks like what's the name of that pink monster character in Looney Tunes?
Monster.
No, Gossamer.
Gossamer.
Yeah. Gossamer.
He looks like Gossamer. He's also a little homage to The Thing a little bit, and also Arnim Zola, you know, like the face on his chest.
Yeah, I could see
so
that.
It's a combination of stuff. But yeah, you're right. You can see that, and you can see that I'm having fun with all these. So I did, my first one in 2022 was COVID Cop. Then I did Billy Dogman and Jane Legit, collection of stories. Then after that, I did the Red Hook X Dean Haspiel, and then recently Chest Face. And so this is where I'm at right now. I'm hoping to launch a Kickstarter like October 1st for the month, like you're doing, Jim. But what I started to realize was like, okay, I've done like introductions to these characters for people who don't know me, which is most people. But the next thing I wanted to do, and I've sent you the cover, and I guess we can show it when this goes up, is another COVID Cop story, right? So what I was planning on doing is something called COVID Cop Insurrection, which is basically a sequel to the first one. And then I have a plot for the third one that would make the book, let's say, right? But then I'm thinking, I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot because some people will be like, I don't want that. And then some people will be into it. Why not instead, and this is one of my favorite comics, why don't I 8-ball it? Dan Cloud's 8-ball.
Yep.
Adrian Tomaney's Optic Nerve. Jessica Abel's Art Babe. The Los Bros Hernandez Love and Rockets, right?
Yeah, I think for you,
this is a two-man anthology, but I'm thinking one-person anthologies,
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I've talked to other artists that are also considering doing that. So why don't I put this story that I intended to do, this COVID Cop Insurrection story, within the pages of a Dean Haspiel, seasonal comic that I put out like 8-ball, right?
I love
it. That way I have some Red Hook stories I could pop in there that are new. I might do some I'll take my pantheon of characters and I'll feature one character in the next issue of this one-man anthology and then sprinkle it with some other characters. And hell, maybe I'll pull out something from the vaults. Maybe I'll do an autobio story. Maybe there'll be a little text in there or something. I can do what I want.
Yeah,
right?
You can do whatever you want.
Yeah, totally.
And so to me, I feel like, and that's why I want your opinion, is a couple opinions. Number one, does that sound smarter than just doing COVID Cop Insurrection? Is to do a one-man army war
for you knowing you and your work, it sounds perfect to me.
Yeah.
Just because you're such a creator of many things, I think this would be an exciting way to put it all out there.
And then you have choices because, like, if you're sitting on the fence on one aspect of this book, but then you're like, oh, I like that other stuff, so maybe I'll give this one a try. Again, part of what it does, and then I have my Ghost World, like inside 8-ball, where eventually you can collect Ghost World into its own book. So I can do some chest face stories that will be collected individually. COVID Cop, Billy Dogma, the Red Hook, that kind of stuff. Now and so basically that's what I'm planning on doing. The thing is, I'm trying to come up with a title. And originally I thought Dean Haspiel's Pantheon, like it would be called Pantheon. But then I was talking to Whitney Matheson, my studio mate, and she's like, that's okay. It's not the greatest word. So then I thought, what about Antimatter? Dean Haspiel's Antimatter.
Yeah, that's
and she was like, that's it.
That's it.
So I'm revealing that here on the podcast for the first time. It may change, but I'm probably going to call my new series of comics
perfect.
Dean Haspiel's Antimatter with all these characters.
It's an exclusive.
There you go.
Exclusive people.
Inkpulp exclusive. Pew, 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 pew.
And with the Antimatter logo, I can see some like Kirby Crackle coming out of it or something.
Kirby Crackle. And then I'm going to just show you.
Oh, he's already got it.
Something I was playing with is like have, the Red Hook broken up and then like all the characters. And I'm
nice.
With,
okay.
Or maybe like something like this. I don't know yet. I'm still playing with the idea of how to
I love
use
it. I love
broken
it.
up, and
I love it.
having
You're
some fun
figuring
with
it out. You know.
That's
Yeah.
perfect. All right.
My only other question before you said that was going to be, how far along are you on this actual new COVID cop insurrection story?
The script was written 2 years ago.
Okay.
Script was written 2 years ago. And then I realized something that I hadn't done in a while, which is when I did the Fox for Archie /Red Circle /Dark Circle, I did like 10 issues, 2 5-issue miniseries. Do you know how I inked it?
Very quickly.
I penciled it. That's how I inked it.
You just darkened.
Dude.
And I'm thinking, why not go back to, because as much as I love ink and this and that, like I've kind of found a quicker style that when I go to my blue pencil and then I quote draw it in my lead pencil and then you scan it, you tweak it, threshold, blah, blah, blah. It's a black line.
Yeah.
Why not just go in that direction?
Your pencils are super tight.
Yeah.
I have very tight pencils. The only problem is you don't get the lush kind of brush or dry or whatever. I could maybe play around and Bill Sienkiewicz it a little bit, just throw a tea bag at it or something. But
Teabag it all day.
Teabag your books.
See, I'm jealous of you guys that pencil super tight because I have to ink. Like I have to ink.
Dude, but you think in ink, man. It's
because it
fucking
comes
amazing.
in the inking stage. It all.
But you're like a fine artist in that way, man. Come on.
Yeah.
Oh,
but Shawn also, man, what you can do, oh my God. It's just
I'll never
unbelievable.
let go of that brush. Yeah, that's my
it's the
signature.
best. So I think for certain stories and certain projects, I've already established it in my oeuvre that I can draw comics in that way. And I think Kovacov doesn't need to have brush effects or whatever. Maybe I'll figure something out. Maybe it'll be a hybrid,
The old line that everyone keeps saying is get it done. Done is better than perfect. So
don't let the perfect get in the way of the good is how I remember a version of that.
That's a good one too. That's a good one too.
Which is the same idea because at the end of the day, when going back to Kyle Baker, like if you scrutinize every panel, you're going to find something wrong with it. It's the collection of all the panels that makes the experience, that makes you swoon, and that makes the story sing, is that collection of earning that next panel because you weren't sitting with it for so long. I've always had a problem when you draw something spectacular on a page and it's just one panel, but like now you stop the story. You're not moving the story because you're ogling and going, oh my God, look at the way that was drawn. No. Keep it moving, man. We have bigger panels and splash pages and we understand how they're used and why they're there, but not to the detriment of the reading experience,
Absolutely. All right. Here's what we're going to do right now. We're going to end the podcast portion and move into the Patreon portion. So everyone who's listening, if you want to hear this continue, go to our Patreon, link below, sign up, and you'll get the extra 30 minutes of footage. And also, that's about it. So we don't have Matteo here to say goodbye.
Right, but before we do say goodbye on the proper episode, Dino, can you let us know your social and where people can find you? Final promo.
I keep it simple. I've actually been using as a website my Substack, which is this Dean Haspiel Substack, my newsletter. And then, I do have a live journal. If you type deanhaspiel.com, goes to my old school live journal, which I do keep up to date. And then Instagram, I'm on Facebook, but I think the two best ways to at least see my artwork and if you're into comics is Instagram and Substack.
Kick ass. Dude, thanks, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
All right. I'm going to sign you off with a little espresso. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Inkpulp Podcast.